he doesn't want to punish us, discipline us, any of this. He wants relationship with us. He doesn't want to be master to a servant. He wants to be a husband to a bride. But we turn from him, as you say, like the morning dew, and it just disappearing into thin air. So what's the God going to do, huh?
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and the Bible.
Today is day 262, covering Hosea 1 through 7.
Well, here we go, Sam. Look at Hosea. Hosea meaning Yahweh has rescued. Essentially, a big chunk of this, one thing I had written down here is be honest with your testimony. It will help others. And I think that's very true, just as a general point to kick us off. But Hosea, as the author, lived in Israel around about 200 years after it broken away from Judah, lived during Jeroboam the second, sort of 760 to 722-ish BC. Assyrian Empire swooped in. It's almost all poetry and spanning over 20 years. I'm kind of reading my own notes here. It's a while since I made them. So, yeah. Interestingly enough, there are some really weird requests from God in the book of Hosea. All sort of for the sake of symbolism, really. And then further references to Jesus, sort of, along those lines. Like, such good reference backwards as well as forwards. Okay, so references Genesis, Numbers, and Kings, but also references quite a lot of stuff forwards as well, prophecy, that stuff.
That's great. I got a question which I think is above both our pay grades. But so Daniel was written in like 530 BC, I think you said it was roughly. Something like that. It was 500 something BC anyway, right? So any reason why in the Old Testament Daniel comes before Hosea, considering that Daniel was written after Hosea, right?
I ain't got a clue, bro.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go. If you have an answer to that, then give us a little comment, give us a little message. It'd be very interesting to know. But yeah, I think you got a couple of points in Hosea 1, so go for it, old bean.
You Squire. So Melody and I, we've mentioned before when we named our kids, we're big into name meanings. And kind of weird that Hosea was firstly told to marry a prostitute, odd. And then to name their children, well, I think I had it written down here. The name of Jezreel was after a massacre that happened in Jezreel. Lo Ruhamah was meaning not loved, and Lo Ami was meaning not my people. Like, they seem to be really harsh names. And so I sort of questioned, was this whole thing of Hosea marrying a prostitute, having kids with these names, etc., was it all symbolic? There are some arguments to and from. The Apologetics Bible here suggests that potentially it was. There are some who believe that it was strictly symbolic, but personally, I doubt it was, just because of the strength of the testimony in it being real.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, obviously it's above anyone's pay grade, but I would think, apart from God's, but I would think that it is real. Because the thing is, right, is like when a difficult passage comes from the Bible, you have to sort of make a decision. Is it your lack of understanding, or is it a flaw with the Bible? And it's ultimately going to be our flaw, not the Bible's flaw, right? For like days, then it's not that hard to believe that God asked for some kids to be named some funny, funky names, right? So it's, and I think the reason I would also think it was real is because the way Hosea reacts is so visceral and like so relatable to how we would react if we married someone and they just kept cheating on us and we had to keep going back to them, right? But yeah, it's some pretty funky stuff for sure.
Really?
Remember, it's God, isn't it? Like, I was talking to my friend Eric last night at a Christian event, actually, and we were sort of saying, like, God obviously doesn't want us to suffer in this life. That it's not like his plan for us to be miserable here, right? But ultimately, his plan is to save us, because this is just a temporary dwelling, as I said earlier. This isn't the final thing. So if you have to live with a funny name for like 50 years in 700 BC, then you get to everlasting heaven. Not that bad a trade, really.
True.
But don't know, man. Interesting question. Hosea 2 verse 16. In that day declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master. So this is a really interesting point forward to Jesus, right? Because obviously Jesus is the bridegroom and we are the bride.
Yeah.
And you can get the impression from reading the Old Testament that God is a master figure and we are a sort of a servant, right? But that isn't what God intends for us at all. He wants a loving, caring relationship more similar to a husband and wife.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, honestly, that's good, man. I'd completely missed that and so love that. And yeah, so true. It's all about that authentic, genuine relationship, not master servant. So, mate, fantastic.
Love it. There we go. You say some things now.
Right. Hosea 3, just honestly, this kind of sums up what you mentioned a minute ago. The Lord said to me, go show love to your wife again, though she's loved by another and an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loved the Israelites, though they turned to other gods and sacred raisin cakes. Not sure why the raisin cakes are so sacred, but whatever, everyone loves a raisin cake. But it's just, yeah, like you said, this huge forgiveness to have to keep going back to somebody who's so continually breaking your heart, effectively. But that's what God does for us. We continue to mess around, idolatry, which he references time and time again as the same kind of pain as adultery, and yet continues to love us and forgive us and just unpegging real. So yeah,
love that, man. Hosea 3 verse 3, he said, Hosea says to his wife, you must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will behave the same way toward you. So that was kind of interesting because Hosea is setting boundaries to his wife in the same way that God sets boundaries with us, but it's not a boundary that God doesn't fulfill and then some, right? So what God asks of us, he does more than that himself, right? Any boundary that God puts on us, he's doing more than that for us himself. And so Hosea's action here, I think, points to that part of our relationship with God as well.
Very true. I've just scrolled down and realized I've got a bunch more points to make, so I better start hurrying up. I'm going to jump into 4. Hosea 4 verse 5 says, you stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you, so I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Then in 4:14, it says, a people without understanding will come to ruin. And I just realized that knowledge is key, but so is applying that knowledge.
Yeah.
And so then this whole people without understanding will come to ruin. Like, you need to be studying it and learning this stuff for yourself, not just because we or anybody else have said it to you. Learn it for yourself. Get your own revelation on it. It is key.
That's good, man. Quick one, Hosea 4:10. They're going to engage in prostitution but not flourish. I thought that was interesting because we live in a culture of more and more sexual immorality, that sort of thing. And yet we're also less and less fertile as a species, not just because of birth control, but just generally our generation is less fertile than our granddads, for example.
Yeah.
And there's no real answer to why that is from science. So kind of interesting little thing there.
Absolutely. I have a couple of quick ones in 6. Firstly, early in 6, it's just the Israelites here saying, come on, let's return to God and he'll heal us, all that stuff. It's just more examples of a vending machine God mentality. In 6:4, your love is like the morning mist, like the early dew that disappears. Just so true how quickly we can, and flippantly, we can just love God and then ditch him again. And then in 6:6, it says, for I desire mercy, not sacrifice, and acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. It's just further proof. It's the intimate relationship, obedience over sacrifice kind of deal. Keep saying it in here because it's ruddy important.
Yeah, dude, that was right there. That was awesome. So I just have one more from 7 verse 13, which I know you also written down. Maybe it'll be the end of the episode, not sure. But God says, I long to redeem them, but they speak about me falsely, right? He doesn't want to punish us, discipline us, any of this. He wants relationship with us. He doesn't want to be master to a servant. He wants to be a husband to a bride. But we turn from him, as you say, like the morning dew, and it just disappearing into thin air. So what's the God going to do, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I had that written down. He longs to redeem us from our sin, from their sin, from everything. He longs to redeem us. It's so important. Fantastic. Tomorrow then, Hosea 8-14. Please be wonderful and beautiful and pick up your Bible and read it for yourself.
Yeah, in the meantime, please keep joining us on social media at 2 Brits and a Bible, and consider sharing this with someone to help spread the word of the Lord.